Hey everybody, Alex here, out of the Park 21 Pittsburgh Pirates franchise, episode number 28, and we are finally back. I apologize for the delay in these videos. I promise you the series of Out of the Park for the Pittsburgh Pirates has not ended. As you can tell, my audio sounds different. It sounds worse. I'll try to boost it in editing to make it sound a little bit better, but my headset broke over 10 days now, and I've been waiting for a replacement. Taking forever for that to finally get shipped in, so I just wanted to finally do a video for you guys because it's been about 2 weeks and I had some free time and not quite sure when I'll be able to make the next video. So I'm not sure when I'm going to post this. I'm recording this on Saturday night right now, but once I get the new headset in, I promise you I will do a couple quicker episodes, so there's not 2 weeks or even a week in between episodes to kind of make up for lost time. Alright, what we will do today is the 2023 first year player draft, and before we do that, we'll take a quick look around at this Pirates team, kind of pick things up. I believe since our last video, I honestly don't even remember what our record was in the last video, but we sit here currently 32-26 right now here on June 4th. That puts us in the second wildcard spot behind the Arizona Diamondbacks, ahead of the Brewers and Padres. So there's some separation here for the moment, at least in terms of really 4 teams above 500 in the wildcard race, and you have some teams that are below 500, and we are 3.5 out of the Cardinals, who seem like they're gonna, as always, be really strong contenders out in the Central. Check out the rest of the NL standings here. The Cubs, the worst team in the NL at 19-39. And as you can see, the AL kind of usual suspects, except the Royals, so surprisingly leading the Central over there in the AL. And here are the total standings. The Orioles back in last place after, I think, kind of having a decent season a year or two ago. Gonna just show you guys the numbers here on screen. You can feel free to pause and look at them however you would like. I won't go through everything individually right now. But Brian Reynolds is starting to have a bounce back year, kind of getting similar production from a guy like Kevin Newman. Ordonez, our top home run hitter, with 19 home runs this season. Nick Decker was in a slump. He's kind of picking things up. And the catchers have done really well. Both Trey Barrera and Jonah Heim, I think, have really impressed me with the bat, which is so tough to find in this game. Kyle Seager still at third base. He's kind of picked things up, hitting 243 in 20 starts this season. Where else should I turn to right now? Let's go to the pitching now, and you see some of the numbers here. I'll sort by what I want to sort by. We'll just go by innings pitched right now. Mitch Keller continues to be ace of the staff, an ERA under 3. Joe Musgrove hanging in there, although the home runs per 9 is always going to be above 1, and 1.2 feels like a low end for him right now. I should also mention some of the injuries we're dealing with right now. I'm trying to catch up on that because it's been a little while, trying to remember what I left off with you guys. But we'll take a look at the injuries on the injured list, and the big one here, unfortunately, we've suffered the loss of Luis Severino with a torn rotator cuff. He's going to miss now a year. This happened back on the 1st, and so his season and likely his time in Pittsburgh is over, which really sucks because he was settling into his own very nicely after a tough start. I think in the last video his numbers didn't look great, but after, what was this, an ERA of 4.8 in April, it was great in May, 1.84, although he did go just 2-2, but you know, wins and losses don't correlate to pitcher's performance always. And then had a start of a good start in June, and unfortunately that arm just went, and on a 1-year deal with, unfortunately, a pretty decent injury history, at least in terms of 3 years ago he tore his UCL, had Tommy John, and now he's torn his rotator cuff. So he's almost certainly not going to be back with us again, a free agent after this year, but big shoes to fill because that was one of our key free agent signings, and he's now out for the season. Good news is Ke'Bryan Hayes, I think Ke'Bryan Hayes, I guess is really how you say it, but I've always said Ke'Bryan, and probably honestly will stick with that. He is just beginning a rehab assignment. Did not have a first game back with AAA Indy, going 0 for 6 with 3 strikeouts, but he should be back for the next video, so that's good to see. And in lieu of Severino being gone, we are dipping back into the minor league system. Gage Hins had come up for James Marvel. I don't know if I showed that in the previous video or not, but he's got an ERA of 5, which had a couple of rough starts here, especially this last one that kind of inflated the ERA. So we'll see if he sticks with the big league club or not with the injuries. He probably will right now, but after Severino got hurt, we've also called up J.J. Goss, one of our top prospects, acquired in a trade I think in the offseason. This was a mega deal with Tampa Bay, sending them a slew of prospects, including Amir Garrett, who is injured and diagnosis pending. He's been in the minors, it appears, all season, and also sent first baseman Mason Martin, who is in AAA and tearing things up pretty nicely. But JJ Goss is in the big leagues right now. He made his debut recently, and if I can find where that came from, let me pull up his game log. He went 5 innings against the Reds in a 5-4 win. This was yesterday in terms of the out of the park universe. 7 hits, 4 earned, 1 home run, struck out 5, did not walk anybody. So not a great start, but not a terrible one either. And so we'll get to know more about JJ Goss here this season. Touch on the bullpen too. David Bednar's doing a good job. Nick Birdie, we'll talk about him in just a moment. You've probably already seen what's going on with him right now. Kyle Crick, and the guy we picked up off of waivers, Brad Week, has been excellent for us. And so that's kind of one of our... We're pretty good about finding bullpen arms. Everything else is a little questionable, but I think we do a pretty good job rounding out the bullpen. And you can see here in our team stats rankings, the offense has never been great, but it's a little better than where it's been. 9th in runs scored. We're always a team that focuses on pitching and defense. We are 1st in runs against, which is surprising, but our bullpen is by far the best in the NL, and I think the best in baseball, although our starters ERA is just 10th. But the defense has improved. We're 10th in errors, but 5th in defensive efficiency and 5th in zone rating. And this just happened yesterday in the game. Nick Birdie. I was thinking a couple days, and whenever I was playing this game, before I got to the stopping point, my headset broke. Like, man, Nick Birdie's staying healthy this year. He's pitching really well. Let's just keep the good times rolling. The good times have stopped. He is diagnosis pending. He's fragile. It's happened before with more minor stuff. We've gotten kind of lucky with the diagnosis pending, where it's only been something a week or two, couple weeks, but I don't have a lot of confidence in this one. So maybe we'll sim a day after the draft here and see what the injury is. If it'll pop up, it may take a couple extra days, so we may not find out until the next video, but fingers crossed for Nick Birdie. And I think this is going to be his last year regardless. He's got another year of arbitration left, but with the salary he's going to command, the value of the closer, we got some guys in the system. I want to show you one here quickly because I'm really excited about this guy. Birdie probably is going to become expendable, and we have a guy, Will Klein, here. He drafted in the 27th round back in 2020. For me, for relievers, they have to have a baseline control of 40, and he's been at 30, 35. He was 35 forever. He's finally ticked up to 40 according to my scout, and so really excited about this guy. I think he'll be a fairly seamless replacement for Nick Birdie whenever the time comes to deal him, assuming this injury isn't so serious that I just cannot deal Nick Birdie. And one last quick look at the team as a whole. Pythagorean theorem says we should be a 33-25 team, so we're just about where we're expected to be. We are, of course, much better at home at the friendly confines of PNC Park than we are away from it. And you see we had a pretty meh type of April, but really had a good May, going 18-10, and that's how we find ourselves 6 games above 500 currently. Alright, it is time for the 2023 MLB Draft. We are picking 23rd overall, a projected slot at just over 3.72 million. Let's check out the Osa Mock Draft, see who they're projecting everyone to go. They have Josiah Morrissey projected to be the first pick by the Texas Rangers, the Cubs, who are the worst team in baseball right now, picking second with center fielder Tyler Williams, and the OSA ratings much better than what our scout Mike Rivera has to say. For us, they're projecting us to get Sanson Faltine, I guess is how you would say it. Very good defensive shortstop. The bat is pretty average though, and so we have a lot of guys who kind of profile like this. So I'm probably not going to take a 22-year-old shortstop who the bonus demand is very light. A junior at Texas right now at 287 last year for the Longhorns, but probably not going to be our guy. So who could be the guy for us? And as usual, I like to focus on pitchers early in drafts and just try to take as many shots in the dark as possible at pitching prospects and hope some of those guys turn out. We do have, and I've showed you guys his name before, I'm pretty sure, Christian Della Schmidt. He does want a good amount of money. He's 22 years old. He's a pretty finesse type pitcher, although the pitch type is normal. Does he have a plus pitch? A little with the fastball, a little with the sinker, but he does have a good arsenal, an array of pitches with really good stamina as well, so that's an option. Other options include, and this is kind of where I've been leaning, is Mike Basile, 23 years old. I don't love that, righty out of Virginia, but with good control, good movement, and the potential for 3++ pitches. Now, as you guys know who play out of the park, will that change up to develop? It's a little questionable. I just had a guy, Quinn Priester, who I think I did trade. I don't know if I showed you guys that or not. Who never developed that changeup, and so I just punted on him because it just wasn't working. So there's a risk there, although it does appear he's going to have good intelligence. Usually when you see this personality readout, that means he's going to have a good work ethic and a chance to really reach or exceed where he's projected to go. He wants slot, so he's going to cost about expected 3.6, 3.7 million. So that's a guy I've been looking at pretty heavily. And I apologize if I showed you guys this before. I don't think I did, but it's been a while for myself too. So again, I apologize if this is redundant, but I did trade Quinn Priester, former first-round pick of the Pirates back in 2019, so the year before we took over. He is now a Minnesota Twin, and we got in return Chris Clark, a reliever, try to give us some extra bullpen help in terms of prospects. 25 years old with good stuff. He's a sidearm guy and he's a fly ball pitcher, but I do like the fastball, curveball, change-up mix, and also just some organizational depth guy. Reggie Grace, who's 23 years old. Our high A ball team in Bradenton is terrible, so I wanted to add a semi-decent reliever to try to make things a little bit better, but based on that ERA, that has not worked so far. I also looked at Drew Baker, who's really more of a reliever, especially with that changeup. Well, he could be a starter. I mean, it's 40 stamina, which is pretty low, and the control's not good, but does have 3 other pitches. What's he want? He wants slot. Probably not going to be our guy in the first round. I've also looked at Jack Walker, who's 20 years old, so he's younger, with, again, good movement, good control potential, 4 pitches, but are any of them going to be great? That's the concern there, but I have looked at Jack Walker pretty strongly. He's going to be cheap at $1.7 million. And there was one more guy I was looking at. I don't know if he slid down the page a little bit. I think this guy maybe. No, it wasn't Will Childers. I cannot find the one guy I was looking at. He was a lefty, and he's escaped me. So if I circle back to him, I will let you guys know. Here he is, Kyle Harrison, 21 years old. Changeup again, developing, that is a concern, but he does seem to be intelligent, which will help his odds, and he's pretty cheap. So not someone we're likely to take in the first round, but maybe in the later round, second, third plus. If he's still available, he may be an option we turn to. And really, overall, it was just hard to find batters that I really like that much. This class as a whole appears to be fairly weak, relatively weak. At least we did look at shortstop Brooks Lee, again, very good defensively, with good eye discipline, good avoid Ks, and a good enough contact, gap power, home run power to make it work, I think, in the major leagues, but I just didn't like him that much. Some other guys here I do have shortlisted, Braylon Bishop, a center fielder, but I think honestly I've taken enough outfielders at this point that I probably need to cool off for a little bit on that. We've also looked at Jake Gloff, who, not really sure why I looked at this guy, 21 years old, local kid out of Villanova, just an average player all around. 2 catchers I've been looking at too. Drew Romo, I mentioned him in a previous video, very good defensively. The bat is average. I don't even know who I'd compare him to. Maybe a Jacob Stallings type, but a little bit better defensively, but a captain, and that's a guy I could look at taking if the board falls the wrong way and there's a big run on pitchers. I've also looked at another catcher a little bit later in this draft, but I really hope I can take maybe as early as the second round. Is Jaden Melendez. So I think I had him my 19 save and turned out pretty decent, but again, good defensively, a little bit better batting profile than Drew Romo, and high leader, high work ethic, potential captain type of dude. I really hope I get to draft Jaden Melendez, and I think he's pretty cheap too at $650K. Yeah, that can work. Alright, so we have started the 2023 MLB Draft. I accidentally hit auto draft for Texas. I was trying to familiarize myself with all the buttons for this. I feel like I haven't played this in a while, and I legitimately haven't in like a week, but just feel like I haven't played this game in a year. But anyway, Josiah Morrissey is your first overall pick as expected to the Texas Rangers. We'll go top 5 here, and then I'll probably just auto sim to Pittsburgh, and we'll recap things from there. But now Chicago, who is projected to take that center fielder, I think Tyler Williams was his name, and they do not go with Williams. They go with pitcher Ben King, who was arguably the top pitching prospect, but pretty raw dude with very low movement, control's not there. He's 23, almost about to be 24 years old, out of Georgia Tech, extreme fly ball type, and he wanted a lot of money, $6.72 million bonus demand. So the Cubs, that may not feel like a great move. He's got a lot of pitches. That knuckle curve is very interesting, but don't know about that one for Chicago. Now the Reds, so a couple of NL Central picks back to back here, and they will go with Tyler Williams, the center fielder. who seems to be an average center fielder. I don't know. I think OSA liked him a whole lot more they did than our head scouts. So we'll find out who was right in a couple of years' time. It's also nice to see getting to the point in the game where a lot of these prospects from the first draft class are starting to come up and pitch and play, and so that's kind of fun to watch those guys. We'll track that in future videos as the whoever just took him here, Pralgo, the shortstop with some power, goes to the Mariners, and at number 5 it'll be the Blue Jays who take Cooper Stinson, another top pitching prospect. Control, always an issue for these guys, especially for a college prospect. That's not a great sign, but ground ball it with good stuff, good movement, and 4 potentially really good pitches. I think that's a pretty good selection for the Blue Jays. Alright, with the top 5 figured out, let's go ahead and auto draft until the Pirates, and then I'll come back, show you guys, who's been taken, some of the highlights, and figure out who the Pirates are going to take 23rd overall. Alright, the Pittsburgh Pirates are on the clock, and let's see who all has been taken. Here's a familiar name, Jordan Walker, going 6th overall. He was part of the 2020 class, taken 3rd overall by the Marlins and did not sign. He went to LSU, so he's now the 6th overall pick. We'll see if he signs this time. I imagine he will. Kumar Rocker, if you're a Pirates fan, you know that name very well. The old tank for Kumar approach has paid off. The Pirates will be picking 1st overall in the real upcoming draft, and he now goes. He was taken back in 2018, did not sign, and he now goes 9th to the Miami Marlins. So we'll see how he does in this game as opposed to real life, where I imagine he will be no worse than the 2nd overall pick. Other guys taken here. We looked at Kale Lansville, a pitcher who wanted a lot of money, $8 million. Liked him, did not like him for $8 million, but he now is drafted by the Orioles, 14th overall. And looks like we might have some different pitching options on the board, although not Christian Della Schmidt, who does go to Minnesota. So the one guy we were considering, don't know for sure if I was going to take him, but he is now a Minnesota Twin. And so that is a moot point, so he'll join Quinn Priester, who we just traded to Minnesota. So who is on the board for us? The top prospect overall is the guy we mentioned earlier, Mike Basile, out of Virginia, the Cavalier. He is a righty, 6'4", 210, so pretty big dude, out of, looks like Massachusetts there. And he may be our guy. Let's see who the top batter is. It is Ian Moeller, a catcher who we've looked at as well, but I really want probably better defensive ratings for a catcher than that. Let's see who our scouting director recommends, and he says Ian Moeller, the catcher. But I think we've taken some catchers. We got Rivera, we got Jonah Heim. We do have Drew Romo, who I like Drew Romo and I think Melendez more than Moeller, so he's not going to be an option. If I ask for a pitcher, he says Mike Basile, and he wants. I can't see they've changed this. I can't see what his bonus demand is recommended slots. If there was something underneath here, so. That's $3.7 million. I think we've budgeted about $6 million to work with, so that would take up a good chunk of change, but for a first rounder that probably works. So there's Basile. Let's check his splits. I think they were pretty much the same. Yeah, a little worse versus lefties on the movement, but nothing terrible. I think that's where we're leaning. Let me see. If we don't go with Basile, we do have Drew Baker. We have Jack Walker, who definitely was intriguing, would feel like a reach based on where he's projected to go, but will he be there in round 2 if we don't get him now? That's, I think, a very valid question. So let me go ahead here, think about it for a moment, and I will come back with my selection. Alright guys, I'm back with my decision, and we are going to go with Mike Basile, the righty out of Virginia. I've taken a lot of high school prospects in the past couple of years, including what was his name? Elijah Content, who just did not pan out. I know there is no such thing as a safe pitching prospect. There's barely any such thing as a pitching prospect because they are so unpredictable. But I do want to go with a college arm here, and so I am going to offer slot here, I think, to Mike Basile and see if he accepts it. I think he will. And so Mike Basile, the 23rd pick of the 2023 MLB Draft and the newest Pittsburgh Pirate. Alright, Pittsburgh back on the clock here for round number 2. I just hit the auto draft us button, so I don't even know who's on the board right now. Brady House, that sounds like a pretty familiar name. I think that guy might have been taken in the real draft. Somebody can correct me on that. He's kind of an interesting prospect. Good power, good third baseman. We obviously have Key Brian Hayes, but it's a name that just kind of popped up. Let's check out the pitchers, and Jack Walker is indeed still here. Consider him in the first round. I imagine our scouting director is going to have some interest in taking him here, so we could go with and he's a high school senior committed to Central Florida, so we could go college pitcher and then high school pitcher, and again, just throw darts there in terms of the top batters. Yeah, just 45 overall already. You had Petey Halpin, who is a center fielder who was drafted in 2020 in the 9th round, but did not sign with the Rangers. He actually went and stayed local in Texas, but with the Longhorns, not the Rangers. Check out the catchers. Did Drew Romo go? I think he did. Yeah, Drew Romo went. He's off the board. Let's see who took him, because that was somebody who I didn't expect to be there in round 2, but I was kind of hoping would be. And I don't know where Drew Romo went. Probably in the 1st round. He went 30th to Atlanta. So, yeah, did not really expect to get him. I like Drew Romo a lot, though. I want to keep an eye on him, but just not a big enough need, and that bat just was not going to be good enough. But I do still have Jaden Melendez, who I am considering here in the 2nd round. He's a pretty small catcher at 5'9", 165, but the dude seems to be a pretty good prospect. Let's see who our scouting director recommends. That's Mike Rivera in his 2nd draft with the Pirates, and he says Brady House, the guy we had just mentioned a few moments ago, 3rd baseman, pretty impressive guy. He is a high schooler, 20 years old, so an older high school. In this game, it feels like the high school guys get older. I don't know if that's intended or some sort of glitch or bug. Good power, though, so I mean, that's nice to see, and definitely could profile well. Kind of only as a 3rd baseman. Does he have any outfielder ratings? He could play in the outfield, so there's some versatility there, but he really in the infield could only play, I think, 3rd base. In terms of a pitcher, I'm guessing it'll be Walker. Yeah, it's going to be Jack Walker, and I like Walker, but I think the other guy, Basile, is asking for 3.7. Jack Walker's asking for 1.7, so if I do both at their asking price, that's 5.4 of our $6 million draft pool, which eats things up pretty quickly. And do I like this guy enough? I'm not so sure. I think ultimately, though, I mean, you look at Jack Walker, you see a lot of promise here, and he's a little more developed than a typical 20-and-a-half-year-old. I mean, things aren't sitting in the 20s or 25 type of range in any category. And I think it's just a good combination of good stamina and pitch arsenal and potential, where he's not going to be an overwhelming type pitcher, but sort of in that maybe Joe Musgrove, a little better than Trevor Williams, kind of reminds me of a righty Steven Brault type of guy. So he's durable too. Will he sign, though? I mean, he's a high schooler. He is committed to Central Florida. I'm not so sure, but I think we're going to roll the dice. I'm going to just draft him right now and think about if I want to change the offer or based on other draft moves I make. Maybe that changes the calculation of exactly how much I offer in my contract to him, considering he wants above the current slot value. So Jack Walker's going to be our pick here. So we're going to go the college pitcher with Mike Basile, and then the high schooler with Jack Walker. 3rd round here now, and I think we had to wait a while for our pick. Let's see if Melendez is still there. Oh no, I don't think he is. Oh no, that was gonna be my guy here. I was gonna go with what's his name, Melendez, or I forget how to say his name, but you know who I'm talking about. Where did he go? Oh, that one hurts a lot. Yeah, Jaden Melendez went 33rd overall in the 2nd round, 33rd pick of the 2nd round to Colorado. Oh man, that one hurts a lot. I was really hoping. I thought he was going to be able to slip and fall a little bit to us, but he goes a good, 20-something picks ahead of us. So that's going to make this one tougher, and there goes Brady House. House was one guy I was thinking about taking had he been available, but he goes to the Cubs at the top of the 3rd round, so we're kind of back to square one right now. Alright, we're going to have to play the old scouting director recommendation game, and he says Miguel Soto, a shortstop who is pretty interesting, 22, almost 23 years old, out of Arkansas Little Rock. See the top players here overall. Let me scroll up. Include Nolan Daniel, a reliever with a pretty low floor, high floor, low ceiling type of guy at a Georgia Southern. In terms of the top pitchers, it's a couple guys we've looked at. With Daniel, we just mentioned Farmer Abendroth. There's a name for you. Don't know about him, although he's not terrible. LSU kid, Pittsburgh, Mississippi, only won $600K. I'm so bummed about Melendez. I really wanted that guy. Also have Will Childers here, a fly ball pitcher, but some impressive metrics in terms of the fastball, curveball, changeup combination. And we've also looked at Kyle Harrison. Pretty good. He's 21, but that changeup, I don't know if it really will develop. I mean, maybe not. I'd like to wait another round if possible, but that is someone I think that I'd probably have to consider at this point. I think ultimately I'm going to circle back here to what our scouting director recommended here with Miguel Soto. It came down to him versus Kyle Harrison, the starting pitcher, but we just drafted 2 pitchers. Harrison has a long ways to go as a project and still 22 years old. I mean, there are some things to like about him. If he's there in the 4th, I'd probably take him. But Soto, I think he's a well-rounded guy. Again, not a super high ceiling, but I think will be a good third baseman. And he can play in the outfield too. I mean, this is a guy that can probably play, potential corner spot as well. And so not a need for us, but I just think a good talent, 22 years old, that could probably at least boost our minor league system and be pretty productive down there. And also very, very cheap. So Miguel Soto will be our pick in the 3rd round. Alright, moving right along here to round number 4. Scouting director recommends Justin Kirby, a left fielder. Let's see who's all on the board for us. Yeah, Kyle Harrison. The starting pitcher is gone. Draft log, he probably went a little while ago, I'm guessing. Yeah, he went pretty up there, I think. Yeah, he went top pick of the 4th round. So there you go there. There goes Kyle Harrison. Alright, let's see who we have here as our top players right now. Brandon Neely seems to be the best starting pitcher, 19 years old. He wants a decent amount of money. Don't know about him. Haven't really scouted him as much as I would like and be comfortable with. And in terms of the top batters, it's Gavin Cash, a power hitting first baseman who's committed to, let me click back on it here, nowhere. It doesn't appear. No, he is committed to Napa Valley, a JUCO. And this catcher here is pretty bad defensively. Could turn him into a first baseman, but I'm gonna pass on him. So let me play around with it here for a moment and figure out who I want to draft. Not a lot of great options here in round number 4 for us. We're gonna go ahead and roll with Nolan Daniel, a reliever out of Georgia Southern. Mentioned him a little bit earlier in the video. The control is really weak, but I mean, he's got some interesting metrics in the stuff, and if he hits with the movement and the control, maybe there's something there. OSA seems to like him a whole lot, so maybe I can just hope that he's somewhere in between the OSA rating and what our head scout says, and he's pretty cheap. So just, again, not a particularly strong draft class. I feel like I scouted it pretty well, but just not seeing a whole lot of talent that catches my eye. Some guys coming off the board, and so might be a little bit harder to find a gem this year. Alright, round number 5. I think because we have a little money freed up with some of the selections we took earlier, we couldn't get a guy like Melendez and went with some real cheap options the last couple of picks, the last 2 picks. We're going to try to roll the dice here with this high schooler, Brandon Neely. Maybe he signs, he's committed to Auburn right now. He's going to want $550K. I don't love him, but I don't hate him either. And in a year where there's not a lot of interesting prospects, I think he's going to be the guy. We're also looking at this center fielder, Tyree Reed, another high schooler. He's committed to Stanford. He's from California, staying local. Really good defender, really good center fielder. We have so many of those guys, so we're going to go with Neely. We'll draft him right now and offer a contract later. Scouting director making our job pretty easy here in round number 6. Reed is still here, and I would have taken him, but he just, our scouting director recommended Carter Young, 22 years old, but really good avoid Ks, great defender, 80 base running type of guy. He's at Vanderbilt right now, so I think we'll try to go with that. He's also a high leader, high work ethic, high intelligence, so he may balloon up a little bit, and so that's a guy to get kind of excited about. So we're going to go with Carter Young here in round number 6. Round number 7, James Triantos, a shortstop. Not taking him, but don't see often in 80 in any category, let alone a defensive metric. 80 infield error. That's kind of interesting. He will not be our selection though. Tyree Reed is still here. I keep almost taking him and then picking somebody else, and so I'm going to see if he can sign for us really cheap. So Tyree Reed, our pick in round number 7. Luke Leto, coming up in our mentions here from the scouting director in the 8th round. Very, very good defensive shortstop. Terrible with the bat. He wants too much money, but that's a name that should sound familiar to baseball fans. So I just wanted to show you guys that. And now I got to figure out who I do actually want to take. We're going to go with the name game here with Carlos Pena. Maybe he's like the other, real life Carlos Pena here. Really good power. Unfortunately, he's a ground ball hitter who's going to strike out a lot, which is not my kind of player, but if he turns into something and I can trade him maybe down the line or just have a good prospect, you're just trying to find guys with some talent, some sort of unique quality. 19 years old with already 45 power, 40 eye discipline. It's not everything I want, but it's something. So he's going to be the guy here in round number 8. In that same just try to find traits category, it's going to be Griffin Agee in the Ninth round with a good curveball. Again, no dominant trait. The changeup is not very good. Potential, long relief type guys. Probably how I'm envisioning Guy. He's 6'5", junior prospect. Also out of Virginia. Okay, that's like the other guy. I think who was that? Jack Walker. So he'll be our pick here in round number 9. And here in round 10, the final pick, I'll do quote-unquote live with you guys, and I'll do the rest and come back and show you the final results. It's going to be Owen Diodotti, the Canadian from Niagara Falls, a catcher who, again, defensively not exactly where I want it to be, but a good leader. It's always important to have in a catcher, and according to OSA, at least kind of has some interesting prospects. It's a pretty low accuracy on him, so I think Rivera is much more likely to be accurate than OSA, but haven't drafted a catcher yet. We'll make that change right now and take Diodotti. Alright guys, I'm going to do the rest of the draft, the last 20 rounds here off camera, and then I will return, show you guys the entire class, and close out this video. Alright, we have just finished up the 2023 MLB Draft. I'll recap the first couple of picks and then show you guys the highlights of the rest. Our first pick, 23rd overall, is Mike Basile, the starting pitcher out of Virginia. Probably never going to be a top tier ace kind of guy, but maybe a number 2, number 3 type, and hopefully he gets some of the intelligence boosts and can really kind of exceed or at least meet expectations. If he does, I'll be pretty happy with that. We went with a high school pitcher, Jack Walker, in the second round. Again, still some work to be done. Never going to have overwhelming or overpowering type stuff, but I think overall a very well-rounded game. Our first batter came in the third round with Miguel Soto, 22 years old. He probably will start he's in Bristol, okay, so he's probably in a good place to begin things right now. He is a shortstop again, but maybe third baseman. Probably more of a third baseman than a shortstop, to be honest with you, but he really could play both. And he has some outfield ability too, so maybe he becomes like a major utility type guy for us. In the fourth round, Nolan Daniel, a pitcher. At this point, we had missed on some of the guys we were hoping to take. I still really want that Jaden Melendez guy, and I'm going to try to trade for him sometime in the future. You can't trade for these guys for at least a year, but that is a guy that I will be watching closely throughout his career, and hopefully he becomes a Pirate at some point. In the fifth round, we took Brandon Neely, a pitcher, 19-year-old, throwing a dart and hoping that it lands. And overall, I would say the theme of this draft was very pitcher heavy. That's where the strength of this class appeared to be, and I think you just take some pitchers and hope that if you draft 10 of them, maybe 2 of them work out, maybe one guy becomes pretty good, and I think overall you probably have a pretty good draft class off of that. And that was the theme with our first pick that happened off camera with Vincent Bianchi, we'll call it, 22 years old. Again, if the changeup's already developed, which is nice to see. He's got the fastball, the slider. I mean, the movement control are pretty low, especially for a fly ball pitcher. But 11th round, I think that's actually probably a pretty good selection. Won't go through every single pick right now. Another pitcher in round number 12 with Cooper Benson. Actually, I probably will click on each guy here briefly, because why not? This guy's interesting. Lorenzo Carrier. I mean, he is utility for sure. He can pitch, he can play in the outfield, play a little third. I mean, the bat is pretty poor, but 20 years old. I mean, he's got a lot of options we could do with Lorenzo Carrier. Kindon Lavelle, I think he has to be negotiated with. He probably will go to school. He's committed to Wichita State, wants to be a shocker, but he's a pitcher that's finesse, and that's usually not where I like to focus these guys, but just trying to find some talent midway through the draft. Same with Aaron Haas, who movement's low, fly ball pitcher, bad combination, but that control is interesting. You try to find one trait that stand out, 23 years old. Doubtful he becomes something, but if he can be a pretty decent control guy in the minors, then that just helps out your minor league teams. And Ben Sweeney, who is not rated highly by our scout, but OSA likes him a decent bit. So again, if you could find some sort of meeting in the middle, and OSA has him as an average scouting accuracy, so it's not just low. And he's got a screwball, a couple pitchers with screwballs this year, so just kind of take a chance on that. EJ Andrews, center fielder, taken here in round 17. Not a whole lot to talk about with him, to be honest with you. I think pretty much ditto with Colby Thomas. He's older, and he's kind of filled out a good bit, so there's a little bit of intrigue there, but probably never going to be more than a decent minor league AA type of guy. Lucas Cook in the 19th round. Again, some versatility, can pitch a little bit. Really going to probably stay at home, though, at third base, but a 40 overall potential in round 19. Could do worse than that. Again, this class was not my favorite, and plus you're just in the 19th round. It's hard to find those guys really, no matter what class you're working with strong or weak. Trenton Shaw, 19-year-old pitcher, he may go to UAB. I'm not quite sure. No, he's actually already been drafted and with the Pirates, so he's gonna be with us. Fly ball pitcher, but has some decent velocity. Touches out at maxes out, around 95 miles an hour. Cameron Wagner, interesting guy. Kind of like this guy. Again, things a little bit more developed. 21 years old, although he's really about to turn 22. But that's a guy that might be a little something. Eddie Esert, just very good defensive, very terrible with the bat, but you get some good defensive guys in the minor league systems, help out your pitchers, allow them to develop, so that's why I went with him. And Alex Havlicek, I went with him because, again, 23, the control is poor, fly ball pitcher, low movement. I really loathe those guys, but decent fastball, curveball, changeup, and his name's Alex, and my name's Alex, and that's good enough to get you drafted in round 23. Zach McManus in the 24th rounder out of Missouri. Again, extreme fly ball, really just hard to find guys. There's so many fly ball guys in this game. I wish OOTP would maybe balance it out a little bit. I mean, it's just so hard to find a ground ball pitcher in this game. There's so many fly ball, extreme fly ball type guys, and maybe that's just supposed to represent the home run era. I guess maybe we're kind of in right now, but just hard to find guys otherwise. Did go with the catcher here, Diego Preda. Good off the field, high leader, maybe intelligence, and as a catcher, good. As a batter, not so good. And last couple of picks here, Will Simpson, first baseman. I was trying to find a first baseman. It's so hard to find that. It's like the hardest position to draft in this game for whatever reason, but finally took one in round 27. Owen Cobb, good avoid Ks, good defense, 70 infield range. That gets you drafted here. There's 21, again, about to turn 22 years old. Colin C, I'm going to call him. I'm not even sure I would say that last name. I'm not even going to try. It's going to sound terrible, but he's the next to last pick here out of Michigan. And finally, 30th pick here, Matthew Porchos, 19 years old. I like to go with just a high schooler. At the end, there's just a real dart throw, but a power pitcher. Touches out, maxes out around 97 miles per hour. And that's some interesting numbers. The control is terrible. Like, that's not acceptable at all. But everything else is kind of interesting. So I think a worthwhile flyer for the 30th round. So I'm going to sim today against the Reds. I will not play this game, and we'll see if we get any news on Nick Birdie. I don't know if we will. I'm not really expecting to, but I will sim it to find out if we do. And fingers crossed for good news for our ace closer, Nick Birdie. Alright, we have simmed the game. We have found out Nick Birdie's injury. I'll tease that to the end of the video to keep you guys watching. Good news here, the Pirates have beat the Reds 8-2. So take a quick look at the box score here. Reynolds, looks like Brian Reynolds had a pretty good game. Nick Decker has been really hot lately, so glad to see him turning things around. He was having kind of a tough start, showed some power, but the average wasn't there. It's still not great, but 237. He was closer to 200 for a good portion of this year. And Steven Ailmus, and we have a decision to make at third base with Brian Hayes coming back. Do we roster Ailmus? Do we release Kyle Seager? I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. Seager, though, seems to be hitting well enough that it's kind of hard to move him right now, but he's limited. He can only play third base, and Ailmus is a utility guy, good speed, so I got some decisions to make there. But Brian Reynolds, 3 for 4, 2 RBIs, average now over 300 on the season. Cody Bolton had an RBI, his first of the year, and Cole Tucker, who has not had a good year. It's been frustrating with Cole Tucker, for sure. And his number is starting to come down a little bit, and yeah, just hitting 221. Gets on base at a good clip, almost a 1-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio, but the bat just has not been there, and defensively he's not elite. He's average to a little bit below, but Decker, Reynolds with home runs, Lolo Sanchez hit a double, and with pitching, Cody Bolton, who has definitely struggled this year. He's really still up in the majors because we've had so many injuries. He had a bit of a labored outing, but 5 2/3, only allowed 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Just is not striking guys out this year. 5.4 Ks over 9. I know that stuff is 45, but I mean, last year he was at 7.8, the year before 8.2, and yeah, maybe it's just all catching up to him right now. Jeremy Walker with the hold, and Steven Brault closes things out with 2 shutout innings. All right, Nick Birdie time. Let's find out what his injury is. I know what it is, but now you guys will too. All right, Nick Birdie has forearm inflammation. He will be out 2 months, so that will maybe require a 60-day DL. He may be 15-day DL though, so it is not the worst case scenario, far from the best case scenario either. That would put him back for August 5th, so right after the trade deadline. So I probably can't trade him, but I wasn't going to trade him during the season unless we were tanking and falling apart, but he'd be an off-season pre or post arbitration, probably pre-arbitration trade, guys. So that plan could still be in place. So we'll have to see how to replace him. I'm not quite sure what the move's going to be right now. Maybe David Bednar has been our closer, maybe remain in that role here. Obviously, a roster spot will open up on the 26-man roster to replace him. I'll figure that out for a future time, but we are now 33 and 26, 2.5 games out of the Central, and a game up on the Brew Crew in that second wild card spot. So our next video will be, I think, right around the trade deadline, July 31st. So Nick Birdie, we're almost coming back by the time we come back for our next video. And for the next video, I will have my headset, hopefully, if it gets sent and there's no more delays and issues, back, and so the audio will sound better, but hopefully it didn't sound too terrible for this one. I apologize for that if it did, but thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you would have done any different draft moves, or just your thoughts on this team, and then what I could do at the trade deadline. Any moves I should or should not make. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk to you soon.